Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be dissertating and talking about astrology and marriage. Now, in astrology, we look at the 7th house, and this could very well show what kind of marriage partner we're looking for as far as the sign on the cusp of the house. And somebody has, say, Capricorn on the cusp of the 7th, this can indicate somebody that's looking for a very stern, more mature partner, often an older partner, and may be attracted to those mature qualities and attributes of that older partner. Sometimes it can indicate that maybe this person is delayed in marriage, because you have to remember the zodiac sign Cancer would be on the cusp of the 1st house, and Cancerians can often wait and might have a protracted marriage, and it might be delayed. Cancers do often marry later than the average person. My zodiac sun sign is Cancer, and I'm going to be 45 soon and still not married and no significant others, so maybe that applies to me because I would have Capricorn on the 7th house cusp in a solar chart. Now, as far as marriage goes, you look at of course, the sign on the 7th house cusp, and look and see if there's any planets in the 7th house. If there's any planets inhabiting that 7th house, of course, that will flavor the 7th house. Somebody that has Mercury in the 7th house might look for a partner that might have good communication ability, be verbose, somebody that they could talk up a storm with, somebody that's, let's say they have Saturn in the 7th. Well, this is similar to the Capricorn on the 7th house cusp, and it might indicate some restriction or limitation in connection with having that significant other. Somebody, let's say, if they were to have Jupiter in the 7th house, this could be a person that might be very well be a fortuitous place for marriage, and it could show someone that's attracted to somebody that has maybe the philosopher in him or her, or somebody that might travel a lot. Could be somebody that's an abstract thinker, somebody that enjoys exchanging philosophies with, perhaps. So those are some things to look at as far as astrology and marriage goes. And also, you want to look at the ruler of the 7th house, and if the ruler of the 7th house makes predominantly good aspects, this could be very auspicious and favorable for marriage, although I don't believe there is any guarantee or assurance that one will have a marriage, and it will be, and even if they do, if it's going to be a favorable or an advantageous one. It doesn't guarantee, just because somebody, let's say, has their ruling planet of the 7th house making all positive aspects or predominantly good aspects, and they have it favorably placed, etc. That still, there's no guarantee, I don't believe, in astrology with really anything, because as many of you know, at the end of my videos I always say the stars may impel but do not compel, and we still have to go out and still take up the course of action to make things actually transpire and happen. I look at this as well, and you have to look at, of course, Venus in your chart, as that is connected with relationships. Now, if Venus makes mainly good aspects, this could be favorable for a good union, and as perhaps marriage, and very auspicious for relations with a significant other. In my case, what's interesting with me is that the zodiac sign Cancer can really, I don't know if we can say if one sign is capable of love unequivocally more so than any other sign, but I think the zodiac sign Cancer is right up there. And what's interesting with me is, okay, I have 3 planets in Cancer, and yet I have really yet to find that elusive love. And there's some things to look at, of course, as far as that goes. Like with me, I do have Venus square Saturn in my chart. That's one problem, I think. Also makes a long square to Neptune, which can indicate that I might be victimized by some delusion or deception in connection with love. And also Neptune is in the 7th house of relationships, so really that could indicate someone that has a hard time perhaps deciphering others' character in terms of relationships. And if your Venus is not making a lot of good aspects, it makes predominantly bad aspects, it could indicate perhaps some problems in finding maybe that right person. And even if you do, is it really the person for you that you want to have a sustained relationship with? In many cases it may not be. And what's interesting too is the ruler of my 7th house, there's 2 rulers because Scorpio is on the cusp of my 7th. So Pluto is in the 5th house of romance, but it's intercepted. So that makes that energy, I believe, a little bit, it makes it suppress a little bit harder to work with because of that. And I also have the other ruler, Mars, in the 3rd house. And Mars, the 3rd house can be seen as a house that is not really the most stable house, and it can indicate perhaps difficulty in maybe finding a prolonged or protracted relationship. It makes it difficult. The ruler of your 7th house, the house that it's in, could show perhaps certain qualities you might look for in that relationship, or the area of life that you like. It's really, I would say, kind of the area of life that you might find enjoyment with that prospective significant other. Having the ruler of the 7th and the 3rd, in my case, could be something where I might look for somebody that has maybe some kind of Gemini type overtones, but might be somebody that might have some, I guess we could say, some whimsical, vivacious qualities, and it could indicate somebody that might wind up being a lot younger than me. And for these reasons, like in my case, that maybe that's why marriage and that real strong significant other has eluded me for a strong period of time. And also, but keep in mind, people, if you have, let's say, if your Venus, say, is afflicted, whether it's by signs, say for example Venus in Aries or Scorpio, and even if it makes a lot of bad aspects, and hope is not lost, because you could also, what could happen is through transits and progressions, this could alleviate some of that negativity, and it doesn't eradicate the negativity associated with these things that I've talked about in the chart, but it could help you deal with them a little bit better, and it will help modify, maybe at least for that time being, the negativity associated with these adverse aspects and replacements. Now, let's say if somebody has transiting Jupiter, making a positive aspect to their natal Venus in their chart, this could be a time which might be favorable and auspicious for perhaps maybe finding that significant other. Jupiter transiting the 7th house, for example, could be another, could be something where this person might put a lot of emphasis on their relationships, and if it makes good aspects, and if you especially have one to Venus, that obviously can be beneficial as well. And keep in mind, though, that Jupiter, although I see it as mainly very benign and beneficial, Jupiter can be, I think, a little paradoxical in a way. It can have some negativity, because sometimes with Jupiter, I think it's not always going to be positive, but it can expand, enlarge things that are associated with that house that it could be transiting. So those are some things to look at as well. And if, let's say, Jupiter going through the 5th house, transiting the 5th, this could be something where you might have some positive influence connected with romance. But it's not, 5th house doesn't rule a significant other, keep in mind, but it's romance, which could eventually lead to that person being that significant other. So those are some things to consider in terms of as far as marriage goes in astrology. And just like, as I stated previously, if you have a lot of things that are favorable in your natal chart for marriage, that still doesn't give 100% guarantee or assurance that you will get married or find that quote-unquote elusive love. That could, you still, if one goes stagnant and becomes complacent, that's obviously not going to be any good. It'd be like somebody saying, okay, I got a very positive chart for marriage, but yet I'll stay home and not do anything. Well, obviously those chances are going to diminish of finding someone, because you're not doing anything and you're not taking forth that action to actually make these things transpire. And just like if somebody has what seems to be a more negative or adverse chart as far as finding a prospective significant other goes, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you will never have anybody. It could indicate that you might encounter a number of obstructions and obstacles and delays along the way of finding that person, but it doesn't mean that you're going to necessarily have go your whole life without somebody. But you can have more difficulties, and it can be more of a laborious or arduous task in finding that person. And keep in mind, transits and progressions are good as well. If somebody has even in a progressed chart, let's say they have Jupiter go through the 7th, this could, and if it makes a lot of good aspects in their progressed chart, well, this could be a really positive, propitious time for possibly for finding that significant other. So negative chart and natal chart is not the end of the world if it's something that's negative as far as finding that relationship or that significant other. So anyway, people, those are some things to consider when you're looking at astrology and marriage and a natal horoscope. And that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment for astrology and marriage. And stay tuned next time, where I'll be continuing my series on the zodiac signs on the house cusp in the natal chart. Two things I want to get with you on before I head out. Firstly, the stars may impel but do not compel. And secondly, never isolate any single astrological element, aspect, planetary placement, position, configuration, influence, or what have you, and make an analysis of a person, astrologically speaking, based on this alone, because astrologically speaking, the person is the sum of all their components in their natal chart and not just one. Until next time, people, stay well.